Alright, so welcome back to some more MX versus ATV All Out. Now, I did want you to hear the 125 revving there because that is one thing that they addressed a little bit in patch 1.03. One of the things that they were trying to improve was the sound of the bikes, the two-stroke, the 125 here in particular. They did get rid of that four-stroke, that weird four-stroke sound that it had, which is definitely a good thing. I feel like it's a bit harder to over-rev the bike to reach that rev limiter. It's still in the air, revving and pulling in the clutch. You hear it, and the sound is a little bit awkward to me still. It just doesn't sound like it's part of the bike, but I do think it's an improvement, and I'm sure they're going to keep improving on this. This is just the one of the first patches, the first patch after the game has been officially released. So it's an improvement, and I can't wait to see what they do with it in the future. So I'm just gonna let the rest of this lap play out so you can listen to it, and then we'll come back and check out the bike versus quad part and kind of talk a little bit about the patch and what you can expect to see on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Okay, so bike versus quad. We're going to start with the 250F, and then we'll run our 5 laps like we did in the last video, and then switch over to the quad, run 5 laps. We're at Seattle. It was kind of a track that I felt like was a little bit easier, run the same lap over and over again. There's probably a lot faster lines, but I'm trying to hit, again, the lines that I can hit with both the quad and the bike consistently to try and give me the best reading. Now, I do want to talk about the patch a little bit here. For PlayStation, I reached out to Rainbow Studios Nordic, THQ Nordic, and for this patch, it fixed like various bugs. They weren't specific on what, but just various bugs, performance issues, so improving the frame rate, and save game data. That was like a big thing, was the save game data. From the sounds of it, the patch fixed that, which is great because losing your progress constantly was frustrating everybody. So glad to see that has been fixed, and the two strokes I believe they worked on a little bit, specifically the 125 like we talked about in the beginning, and I'm glad to see that they're working on it. It still needs work, for sure, but I do believe it is better than it was. I do believe it's a step in the right direction, and can't wait to see what they decide to improve on it next, and where they can take it, you know what I mean, where they can take it and how good they can make it. So I know a lot of you guys were upset with the way they sound, and I share your frustration on that. I really do. So I'm just glad to see that they're working on it, that they're being aggressive with their patches here. I know it's just the first one. Well, yeah, I know it's just their first one technically because of the release date, but they already had a patch to address some of these things right away. So they're attacking it aggressively, and hopefully pretty quickly we can have the game running really smooth. Now, with frame rate, I did notice a change in Supercross, racing the AI. It did still lag for me. It was still frame rate issues, but I feel like it was better. I didn't get that really bad hard frame drop in corners where it would mess you up for the entire next section. Throughout the entire race, it was still just kind of, in general, a little laggy, but it wasn't supposed to be, from the sound of it at least, it wasn't supposed to be an one patch fixes all kind of thing. It's going to take multiple patches to improve the game and whatnot, and we'll see in the future what they can do and how much they can improve the game. But it did improve frame rate for me, at least a little bit, noticeably. Now, I didn't notice it as much on like time attack here, because you'll see in the video it is lagging, it is stuttering here and there, and I'm on PS4. It was doing that. I don't know, it maybe, I don't know. I noticed it mostly, the improvements, racing the AI on Supercross. Now, I didn't test out the Nationals, so I'm not really sure, because that's where the frame rate issue was the strongest. But I would assume it's probably a little bit better there as well. Save game data, like I said, two-stroke sounds, and various bug fixes. Now, for Xbox, it sounds like that patch will be coming out later next week, sometime towards the weekend, most likely. So for you Xbox guys waiting for something, that will be coming shortly. And for PC, it sounds like it's just easier to put out patches on Steam. They'll probably be fixing things a couple times during the week. I believe the first patch that they'll be doing for the PC version will be to fix some online matchmaking issues and the keyboard support for keyboard players, because I know that was an issue. I know multiple people that are playing on PC and play with the keyboard. I know most of us use a controller, but there are people that use the keyboard, and I know that they were having issues. So keyboard support is something that they are going to be addressing with the patch that they will be putting out for Steam pretty soon. So that's kind of the news with the patches that I understand when I was reaching out to them that they had told me. And one thing people were talking about was that they were seeing the OEMs in like multiplayer, like in lobbies or something, or being able to select. I don't know, I didn't see it. People were telling me about it, but I didn't see it. So we do know that we're getting OEM DLC. I know they mentioned it, but some people had already seen it. So I guess some of you guys got an early glimpse, I suppose. But I do believe they patched that, and they did say they will have DLC available as soon as April 4, which will be cool, and hopefully we can get another patch or something like that in between there, and that would just be great, just to keep improving the overall experience of the game. Now, to kind of talk about what's going on here with the bike versus quad, I am not good with the quad, okay? If you're offended by my quad gameplay, I am very sorry. I know it's probably offensive because of how bad I am. The quad is probably much better than what I'm using it as, but going from the bike to the quad is really difficult for me. It was a lot easier in Encore because you could abuse the first gear clutch boost, and it was just easy to hit really big lines. Here, I feel like the clutch is a little bit better maybe on the quad, but it's nothing like it was in Encore. And I struggled to turn it. I struggled to corner the quad, and it was just tough. I mean, hitting the jumps and the rhythm sections and even the whoops didn't really feel too different from the bike, but the cornering was a lot more difficult, I guess. A lot more difficult. You could kind of square the corners off by hitting the brake, but the problem is it was hard to get going again. Now, you could use the manual, and it probably would be better. I was using the automatic because I want to use the manual with the thumbsticks. The problem is every time I preload, even lightly, it's always shifting. So all of a sudden, I'll be like in 5th gear and not really realize it. And now there is another one. There is another layout. Let me grab my controller here. Where you shift with square, upshift with square, I think, and downshift with X, which it just feels awkward doing that because muscle memory's not trained to do that for me. So I've just been sticking with the automatic right now. I want to use the manual. I like using manuals in racing games, but just haven't done it quite yet. And we turned a 56.47 on the bike, which actually was a pretty decent lap. I was pretty happy with that. Not hitting the best lines possible, but hitting the consistent ones, being able to turn a sub 57, I was pretty happy with, even if it's slow. Even if it's slow, I was pretty stoked for that. And on the quad, I believe that 58 even is probably the best we're gonna get. I think it is. So for me, switching over, if you use the bike a lot and you don't use the quad, the bike is faster. If you're good with the quad, I'm sure you could run a better lap time, okay? I'm not trying to talk down on the quad here, okay? Yes, I'm a bike guy, and yes, I love the bikes, but I'm not talking down on the quad. I'm just saying, for me, I can't use the quad at all. I just can't. It was too hard. It was too awkward to corner with, and just a whole bunch of things. So for me, the quad was not quite as good as the bike, but that doesn't mean that if you're good with the quad, you can't be as fast as the bikes, okay? Just want to make sure there's no confusion. Not saying the quad's bad. It works better for me to use the bike. The lap times were just so much better, and it's so much easier for me to corner on the bike. Now, I'm sure if you use the quad a lot, you could get used to it, but I just don't use it enough. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but both the quad and the bike were fully upgraded, had them both equal. They're both 250s, just so everything was pretty equal. Could have used like the 450 quad against the 250, but for me, I don't think it would have made much difference because where I was losing so much time with the quad was in the corners. It was 100% in the corners where I was losing all the time. But that about wraps up this video. Thank you so much for the support on the channel and the series. It really means a lot. I really can't thank you guys enough. Thank you. So until the next video. Take it easy.